Hello there, I'm Jonathan Atwell and welcome to Crossroads Church. Now, this is the first video I've produced in a while, and it's my goal to start producing some of these videos. Now you're going to notice nothing really fancy about the production value right now. We're going to get there. We're going to take our time. I was talking with one of my friends who shoots YouTube videos pretty often, and he told me, I just asked him for some advice. We're sitting down having lunch, and he said, listen, the thing about shooting YouTube videos is just start shooting them. So that's what I'm doing. I'm taking your advice, Kevin, and I'm just shooting this video, and we'll worry about production quality another day. My hope is to begin doing videos pretty often, because I want to have the chance to share a little bit I don't get to other times of the week. And I know that probably most of our views will be from people who are part of Crossroads Church, and that's great. I want to start this video by just telling you a little bit about our church. And then what I'm going to do is we're going to review a little bit from this past Sunday. Then I'm going to share some additional thoughts I really didn't get to share, and then we'll talk about some upcoming events. And then I'll talk about what's going to take place next Sunday, what this coming Sunday is going to be all about. And so I want to start with just a little bit of information about our church. Crossroads Church is in North Richland Hills, Texas. It's kind of in the northeast part of Tarrant County, just inside, a little bit inside the 820 loop on Boulevard 26. Our address is 6331 Boulevard 26, Suite 250. And if you grew up around here, if you haven't lived, if you're familiar with the Now, I grew up here and graduated from Richland High School right down the street. And if you're familiar with the Now, we are kind of at the corner of where Richland Hills and North Richland Hills and Haltom City all come together. The old Birdville Stadium is next door. If you've been around for a while, if you've been around almost as long as I have, you'll remember there used to be a Ponchos down at the south end of North Richland Hills, and we are literally in a storefront 2 doors down from that Ponchos. And so if you ever want to come see us on a Sunday morning, we have 9:30 and 11 o'clock services on Sunday mornings. We'd love to see you. And so that's a little bit about us. I've been pastor here since 2003, and our church was started in 1998. And we're a real casual church. What I'm wearing right now, these are my Sunday clothes. And I'm the pastor, so you can show up in jeans and a button-down or a t-shirt, and man, you'll fit right in. We are very, very casual on Sunday morning. Our people really care about people, and just we'd love to see you sometime. Okay, so reviewing a little bit from this past Sunday. This past Sunday, we took a look at 2 stories from the New Testament, from the life of Jesus. One was the story we call the rich young ruler, and one was the story of Zacchaeus. In the story of the rich young ruler, this man approaches Jesus, and he says, "Good teacher, what must I do to be saved, or to inherit eternal life?" Excuse me. And Jesus asks him about the law, and he tells Jesus that he's kept the law since he was young. And then Jesus says this to him, "One thing I ask of you, that you would sell all that you have, give it to the poor, and come follow me." And the man walks away sad. And Jesus says that he's sad because he's a wealthy man, and it's harder, Jesus says, for a wealthy person to enter the kingdom of heaven it's easier, he says, for a camel to go through the eye of a needle than for a wealthy person to enter the kingdom of heaven. And his followers kind of freak out. What do you mean? Because they realize he's talking about an impossibility. And he says to them that what is impossible with man is possible with God. And so what's the takeaway from this first part of the story? Well, the first part of the story is that this man was a man who followed the law as best he could. But the reality is we all fall short. None of us measures up. And so what we really need, our wealth won't get us into eternity. Jesus said that what does a man profit if he gains the whole world but loses his or forfeits his soul? What we need for eternity is we need Jesus. And that was the central idea of this message, was what we really need is Jesus. Because the next story in Luke 19 is the story of Jesus talking with a man named Zacchaeus. Zacchaeus, if you grew up in church, you know the song, Zacchaeus was a wee little man, and wee little man was he. So Zacchaeus was a short guy. And he wanted to see Jesus. He was an important guy. He was a tax collector. He had a lot of authority. People wanted him to like them. So he wouldn't take more money, because the Romans gave him the authority to collect as much tax as he could. And Jesus was coming through town. He lived in the town of Jericho. And as Jesus was coming through town, he wanted to see Jesus. But here's what's funny. He could have gotten a spot at the front of the crowd. He could have walked up to him the way the rich young man did and asked him a question. But he wanted to see him but to see him from a distance. And the problem was he was short, so he couldn't stand at the back of the crowd and see him. So he climbed up in a tree. And the Bible tells us that Jesus walked up to this tree. And as I see this picture, I imagine the crowd parting as they kind of lined up like a parade. And he's up in the tree, and the crowd kind of parting as Jesus approaches. And he walks right up to Zacchaeus, which wasn't what Zacchaeus wanted. And then he said, Zacchaeus, I'm coming to your house. And Zacchaeus, somewhere in the process of all this, does what John, in John chapter 3, calls being born again. And Zacchaeus then, as he is born again, he then is able to put his hope in Jesus. And when he does, he comes to Jesus and said, listen, Jesus, I'm going to give half of what I have. I'm going to sell half of what I have and give it to the poor. He said, and anyone I've cheated, because tax collectors were allowed to cheat people, anyone I've cheated, I will pay back 4 times what I took from them. And Jesus then says that this man now is a son of Abraham. What did he mean by that? Well, the Bible tells us that Abraham was saved by his faith. And so what we see here is that because Zacchaeus in this moment was born again, that he was given this faith. And so that's what we talked about. And we talked about how what we really need is Jesus. We don't need our stuff. We don't need our rules. We do follow Christ. We do try to love others. Jesus told us that we should love Him, love the Lord our God with our heart, soul, mind, our strength, and love our neighbor as ourselves. And so we work hard to love others. Why? Not because we want God to like us, but because we are so grateful for what Christ has done for us. That's what we talked about this week. We had a really good Sunday. When I was younger, back in the early part of the 2000s, I used to listen to a guy on the radio named Randy Galloway. He was a sports commentator, wrote for the Star-Telegram before he retired. And he had a show every afternoon, and I'd listen to it as I was on my way home from seminary when I was going to school. And he used to call Mondays Overreaction Mondays. And the funny thing about Mondays for pastors is they're overreaction days. If we have a good crowd and we have a good service and the music goes right and our preaching goes well and people are paying attention and we have a lot of people there, what happens? Man, we go, this is great, man. We had a great Sunday and we feel good about it all week. And just like Cowboys fans, when the Cowboys have a horrible game, what happens? Man, we think, man, this is the worst team ever. Well, when we have a bad Sunday at church, and what do I mean by bad Sunday? Well, when we have a Sunday, there aren't as many people here. Or when we have a Sunday that we miss some key families. Or when we have a Sunday that, man, our sermon just goes awful. Or the musicians really drop the ball. And those things happen. They do. It's easy for me as a pastor to overreact, and for all pastors. So if you go to somebody else's church, hey, on Mondays, if you guys have a bad Sunday, for whatever reason, you think the pastor might be a little bummed, send him a note and tell him, hey, thank you for being our pastor. Great job yesterday. Because, man, Pat, Mondays are tough. We really overreact. And, man, we had a great service, though, this week. And so I'm feeling really good this week. But we had a great Sunday, and really good things are happening. We've got some really fun events coming up on November 12th. We are going to hang around after our 11 o'clock service and have lunch together. Every year, we like to have a Thanksgiving dinner together, and so it's kind of a potluck. Everybody brings part of the meal. We send a couple turkeys home with somebody to cook, and so that's really exciting. And then also we've got a video game night where we're going to play Just Dance with our teenagers. That's coming up on Friday, November 10th. That's for 6th through 12th graders. And then some stuff we do every week. We always have some small groups, and the small groups are really important to us here. As a matter of fact, my next video is going to be about what is important to us at Crossroads, and our small groups are a big piece of that. And then we also, every week on Wednesday nights, we get together with our 6th through 12th graders here at the church. And so if you have an interest in any of those things, I want to invite you. Send me a note, info@crossroadsfortworth.org. That's all spelled out. And I'd love to get back with you about any of those events, give you more information. And then a little bit about this coming Sunday. So this coming Sunday is one of my favorite stories. We are going to be taking a look at the story from the book of Matthew, where two men, or one man, owes a king money, and that king or that master forgives his debt. And what we're going to be talking about this Sunday is how God forgives us. And our current series is called Stories of Hope, and we're going to wrap up the series with this message. And I'm really excited because this is a message about hope. This is a message about the hope that we have to truly be forgiven, and how when we are forgiven, we have the capacity to forgive others because we understand the fullness of God's forgiveness to us. Well, again, I'm Jonathan Atwell. If you'd like to get in touch with me, info@crossroadsfortworth.org. You can check out our website anytime at crossroadsfortworth.org. That's all spelled out. And please feel free to get in touch, to send me a note. Feel free to comment on this video. Let me know what's on your mind. If you've got questions about something I talk about, I'd love to spend, especially this review from Sunday video, I'd love to spend some time answering questions. If you have questions about something from our message or something I've talked about, I'd like to build that into this review video or into maybe another down the road, a question and answer video if that time comes, or we've got enough questions that I can do that. So feel free to submit questions in the comments. Feel free to submit questions via email, and I'd love to answer those for you. And thank you for this time with me. Have a great week, and I hope to see you Sunday.